The median retirement account balance in America at the end of last year was $44,000, not $44,000 per person. That is the midpoint of every single retirement account in the Vanguard universe. 5 million accounts, $44,000. That is less than the average price of a new car. And the people who are retiring wealthy, they were not following the same advice that produced that number. They were not even in the same game. Here is what this video is actually about. This is not about saving more. This is not about compound interest. You already know that. This is about 3 specific invisible drains in your retirement plan that are pulling money out of your future right now, silently, in ways that your 401k statement will never show you. And the people who retire wealthy, not just comfortable, actually wealthy, figured out those drains exist, and they stopped the bleeding before they tried to fill the bucket. Stay with me, because the second one on this list is the one that almost no retirement calculator on the internet accounts for. And it is statistically the most likely thing to derail even a well-funded retirement. Let me set the stage. Traditional retirement advice is built around one core assumption. Your job is to accumulate as much money as possible, hand it to a professional, and withdraw 4% of it per year starting at 65 until you die. That is the system. Max your 401k, pick a target date fund, retire at 65, 4% per year, done. Financial independence achieved? The problem is that this advice was designed for the average outcome. And the average outcome, as I just told you, produces $44,000 at the finish line. That is not a retirement. That is a car. The metaphor I want you to hold in your head for this entire video is a leaky bucket. Traditional retirement advice obsesses over how fast you pour water into the top of the bucket, how much you contribute, your savings rate, your employer match. But the bucket has holes in the bottom, 3 of them. And the people who retire wealthy found those holes first. They did not pour faster, they patched the bucket. Every section of this video is going to come back to one question. Which hole are we talking about now? Let me give you a number before we go any further. Hole number 1 is going to cost you $3.3 million over a 40-year investing career if you let it stay open. That is not an exaggeration. That is the math. Here is the scenario laid out by Brad Barrett of the Choose FI podcast in a breakdown that went quietly viral in financial planning circles. You start with $100,000. You contribute $1,000 per month for 40 years. The market gives you 9% annually, which is roughly in line with long-term US stock market historical averages. With 0 fees, the index fund path, you finish with $7.2 million. Now add a 1% advisor fee on top of a 1% actively managed fund fee. Your net return falls to 7%. You finish with $3.9 million. Total damage, $3.3 million. 2 percentage points of annual fees compounded across 4 decades turn a $7.2 million retirement into a $3.9 million retirement. Read those numbers again slowly. Half your portfolio gone, not to market crashes, not to bad luck, to a fee most clients sign off on without reading the paperwork. Investment fees compound over time, exactly like your returns do. A seemingly small 1% difference in annual fees can reduce your final portfolio value by 20 to 30% over 30 years. This is hole number 1, the fee bleed. And here is the part that really gets under my skin. The fee is not just a fee. It is a fee on your gains too. If you start retirement with $1.5 million and pay a 1% AUM fee, that is $15,000 per year. After several good market years, your portfolio grows to $2 million. You didn't contribute a dollar. The market appreciated, your annual fee just increased from $15,000 to $20,000. You got a raise you never asked for, and it went entirely to someone else. Now, look, I'm not saying advisors are useless. Some of them are genuinely worth it for tax strategy, estate planning, behavioral coaching when markets drop. But a lot of them are putting you into actively managed mutual funds and charging a percentage on top. That is a fee stacked on a fee. Among active funds, those with professional investment managers at the helm, only 38% beat their passive peers in 2025, after accounting for fees down from 42% in the prior year. according to Morningstar's semi-annual active passive barometer. Just 21% of active strategies survived and beat their average index peer over the decade through June of 2025. The US large cap market has been particularly challenging for active managers due to its high transparency and efficiency. Just 8% of them survived and beat their average passive rival over that same decade. 8%. You are paying a premium fee for a product that beats a no-cost index fund 8% of the time in the largest, most efficient market segment. The house always wins, and in this case, the house is wearing a nice suit and calling itself your wealth manager. The average expense ratio for index equity mutual funds is 0.05%. Active equity mutual funds sit at 0.64%. That makes actively managed equity funds over 10 times more expensive on average. 10 times. And the performance data says the expensive one loses most of the time. Patch hole number 1, low-cost index funds for your core holdings. This is not a new idea, but most people are not actually doing it. They're sitting in target date funds that have layers of fees inside, or they are in a 401k plan where their only options are expensive actively managed funds because that is what the plan administrator was paid to offer. Check your expense ratios. Today, this is the lowest hanging fruit in retirement planning, and it is still mostly being ignored. By the way, hit subscribe if you like the content. Otherwise, YouTube's algorithm may never show you my videos again. Now I want to tell you about something that makes the fee problem look almost quaint in comparison. And before I get to it, I need to give you one more number first, because it completely reframes the whole conversation. According to a survey by the Transamerica Center, 58% of retirees left work sooner than planned, and most for reasons beyond their control. 46% left work as a result of personal health issues, including physical limitations or disability. 43% retired early for employment-related reasons, including loss of a job, dissatisfaction with work, organizational changes at work, or being offered a retirement buyout. 58%, more than half. One of the most consistent and important findings in retirement research is the gap between when workers expect to retire and when they actually do. According to the 2025 EBRI Retirement Confidence Survey, the median expected retirement age among workers is 65. The median actual retirement age among retirees is 62. That 3-year gap has persisted for decades across multiple surveys. Think about what that means for your plan. Your whole retirement model, the savings rate, the Social Security timing, the withdrawal schedule, probably assumes you work until at least 65. Maybe 67, maybe longer. The math works. Right up until the moment your back gives out, or your company announces a restructuring, or your spouse needs full-time care, and then you are 3 years short of Medicare, years short of maximum Social Security, and your portfolio has to carry the weight of a plan it was not designed to handle. Just 21% of those who retired early did so because they were financially stable. 21% choosing it. Everyone else, life chose it for them. Higher income households are more likely to retire because they met savings targets or chose to step away. Lower income households are more often forced out by health issues or employer changes. As one researcher put it, the higher income people are more likely to do it because it's their choice, whereas the lower income people are more likely to have their health or a change at the company being the cause. And this is where the conventional wisdom commits its worst sin. You think the problem is not saving enough. But actually, the problem is not building a plan that survives the collision with reality. Every retirement calculator I have ever used assumes you retire on a specific date, at a specific age, smoothly, by choice. None of them run the scenario where your employer eliminates your position at 61. None of them model what happens when you have 3 fewer years of contributions, 3 more years of drawdown, and you claim Social Security early because you have no other option. Claiming Social Security early can result in a significant reduction of benefits. Retiring before your full retirement age reduces your benefit by 25 to 30% depending on your year of birth. And yet, only about 4% of Americans wait until they're 70 to claim the maximum Social Security benefit, according to research from the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies. The wealthy retirees, they build two timelines. One that assumes they work until 67, one that assumes they get pushed out at 61, and they fund the second one first. The plan has to work under the worst case timeline, not just the optimistic one. Hole number two, the assumption that your plan only has to survive the version of events you prefer. There is a story worth telling here. There's a man I will call Marcus, mid-50s, engineer, disciplined saver, did basically everything right by the textbook. Maxed his 401k for 15 years. Never touched it during the 2008 crash. Stuck to his glide path. By 2021, he had a little over $900,000, and he was planning to work 2 more years to hit the magic number. Then his company was acquired. He was out at 62. Not a layoff in the traditional sense, they called it a voluntary transition package with enough pressure behind it that refusing felt impossible. He took it. His plan assumed 2 more years of contributions and 2 more years of market growth. It assumed he would claim Social Security at 67. It assumed Medicare coverage starting at 65. None of that held. We will come back to Marcus, because what happened next is the part of this story that almost nobody talks about, and it connects directly to the third hole in the bucket. Here's the part that never makes it into a retirement calculator. Knowing the numbers is one thing. Having a mathematical framework built around your actual exit timeline, including what happens when your exit comes 3 years early, is something else entirely. I spent 2 years building a digital book called The Exit Code, specifically because every tool I found was optimizing for the scenario where everything goes right. The Exit Code is built on 50 years of actual retirement data, and it does something different. It gives you a mathematical framework for turning maybe someday into a specific date, and it stress tests that date against the scenarios you would rather not think about. 2 elements directly relevant to what we are discussing right now. The 58% rule, which is built around the forced exit problem, and the buffer you need to survive it without wrecking your Social Security strategy, and the Social Security bridge strategy, which is a documented approach for delaying your claim to age 70, even if you stop working well before that. Not collecting at 62, not leaving years of higher benefits on the table, bridging the gap with portfolio income in a way that dramatically changes your lifetime payout. This is not opinion, it is a mathematical model. And the gap between running that model early versus not running it at all compounds against you every single year you wait. You can get the Exit Code through the link in the description for less than what you would pay for 1 hour with a mediocre financial advisor. Now, back to hole number 3. And Marcus is going to walk us right into it. Marcus retires at 62 with $900,000. He calls his advisor. His advisor says, start pulling 4% per year. That is $36,000 in year 1, adjusted for inflation, each year after. Classic, textbook, right off the retirement planning poster. The year is 2022. The S&P 500 dropped roughly 18% that year. Bonds dropped simultaneously, one of the worst years for a balanced portfolio in decades. Marcus is withdrawing $36,000 from a portfolio that is actively shrinking. Every withdrawal is selling more shares at depressed prices. Fewer shares means less recovery when the market comes back. This is called sequence of returns risk. And it is the single most dangerous force in retirement finance that the 4% rule was never designed to fully account for. Morningstar's 2025 research found that retirees who experienced poor returns in the first 5 years and did not adjust their spending were far more likely to go broke. This is sequence of returns risk in action. It is the single biggest threat to any retirement withdrawal plan, regardless of the starting rate. If you retire into a bear market and keep pulling the same dollar amount from a shrinking portfolio, you are selling low at the worst possible time. The most dangerous threat to the 4% rule isn't a bad average return over 30 years. It's a market crash in the first 5 years of retirement. If your portfolio drops 40% in year 2 and you keep withdrawing the same amount, you're selling a much larger percentage of a smaller portfolio. This sequence of returns risk can permanently impair a portfolio that would otherwise have survived. Let me show you the math on why this matters more than people realize. 2 retirees, both start with $1 million. Both experience identical average returns over 30 years, let us say 7% annually. Retiree A gets strong returns early, 15%, 12%, 10% in years 1, 2, and 3. Then a downturn later. Retiree B gets the crash early, negative 20% in year 1, negative 10% in year 2, then recovery. Same average return, same starting balance, completely different outcomes. Retiree B can run out of money while retiree A is still thriving, purely because of when the bad years arrived. In a high inflation environment, withdrawing more at the start of retirement to keep pace, particularly when the market is down, can throw retirement planning off track. Someone who started withdrawing $100,000 a year will be taking out $114,490 in year 3 after 2 years of 7% inflation. That's hard to sustain, as you'll continue to build off those higher than expected withdrawal rates. The 4% rule was built on historical data going back to 1926. It was designed for a 30-year retirement. If you retire at 62, which, as we established, is now the median actual retirement age, you might need your money to last 35 years, possibly 40. For retirements lasting 50 or more years, retiring before age 40 to 45, the 4% rule shows only 75 to 85% success rates, below the 95% plus ideal. Most researchers recommend 3 to 3.5% for early retirement, and the person who created the 4% rule has since revised it upward. Bengen himself has suggested 4.7% as the worst-case historical safe withdrawal rate, telling CNBC in 2025 that retirees who stick with just 4% are likely cheating themselves a little bit of the retirement they earned. So the rule is simultaneously too conservative for people with healthy portfolios in good markets and too aggressive for people who retire into bad ones. That is a wide range of uncertainty to stake your financial life on. Here is what the wealthiest retirees do instead. They do not follow a fixed withdrawal rate. They use what I would describe as a dynamic withdrawal approach. They flex their spending based on what the portfolio is actually doing. Good year in the market, spend a bit more, take the vacation, make the upgrade. Down year, cut discretionary, draw less, let the portfolio breathe. This sounds simple because it is. The execution is not. If there's no sequence of returns problem early on, bump up your spending. You could even spend 5, 6, or even more % a year, especially if you can cut back when the market does poorly. The ability to be flexible in retirement is extremely valuable, and it will likely allow you to significantly exceed a 4% withdrawal rate. The second thing wealthy retirees do is maintain a cash buffer, 1 to 2 years of expenses in liquid assets, completely separate from the portfolio. This means when the market drops 40% in year 1, they do not touch the portfolio at all. They live on the buffer. The portfolio gets time to recover. No forced selling at the bottom. The best defenses: keep 1 to 2 years of expenses in cash so you don't have to sell equities in a crash. Consider a dynamic withdrawal strategy where you trim discretionary spending if the portfolio drops 20% or more. And if possible, delay retirement by 1 to 2 years if you're caught in a market downturn right at your planned retirement date. Marcus did not have the buffer. His advisor did not model the scenario where he retired in a crash year. His plan was built for average conditions and delivered below average results. He is not an outlier. He is the median. Now, here's the kicker. All 3 holes in the leaky bucket interact. The fee drag reduces your starting balance at retirement. The forced early exit gives you less money and more years to cover. The sequence of returns risk then hits that already depleted portfolio right when you are most vulnerable. They compound on each other in the worst possible direction. The traditional retirement advice system optimizes each of these in isolation, max your contributions, pick your fund, follow the 4% rule, and completely ignores how they interact over time. The wealthy do not optimize in isolation. They treat the entire system as connected. Let me show you a concrete scenario because I want you to feel the difference in dollars, not just concepts. 2 investors, both 40 years old, both earning $140,000 per year. Both start with $200,000 saved. Investor A follows conventional advice, contributes to a traditional 401k at the maximum limit, uses an actively managed fund lineup averaging 0.8% in fees, works with an advisor charging 1% of assets under management, plans to retire at 65, takes Social Security at 62 when forced out early, and withdraws at a fixed 4% per year starting immediately. Investor B does 4 things differently. First, she keeps her total fee load under 0.1% by using index funds, saving roughly 1% annually. Over 25 years, on a growing $200,000 base with ongoing contributions, that fee difference compounds to roughly $170,000 in saved compounding. Second, she builds a Roth IRA alongside her traditional account, creating what tax planners call the 3-bucket system: pre-tax money in the 401k, after-tax money in a taxable brokerage account, and tax-free money in the Roth. Third, she builds a 2-year cash buffer before she retires, explicitly because she knows the 58% rule. Fourth, she builds her Social Security bridge drawing portfolio income in early retirement years while delaying her claim until 70. The Roth piece deserves its own moment because it is genuinely under-discussed. For many families, the largest hidden tax liability sits inside their retirement accounts. Traditional IRAs and 401ks, while valuable, can often be tax-deferred ticking time bombs. Every dollar withdrawn is taxed as ordinary income, whether by you, your spouse, or your heirs. If your son inherits a $2 million traditional IRA during his peak earning years, he could face 37% federal taxes on every dollar. If he inherits a $2 million Roth IRA, every withdrawal is tax-free. The people who retire wealthy understand that there is a specific window between retirement and age 73, when required minimum distributions begin, where they can convert traditional retirement funds into Roth accounts at dramatically lower tax rates. This creates a 7 to 10 year conversion window between retirement and forced IRA withdrawals. The opportunity: you retire at 62 to 65 with relatively low income, delay Social Security until 70, and have nearly a decade to systematically convert IRA dollars at favorable rates before RMDs kick in. A client who retires at 62 and doesn't start converting until 68 has lost 6 years of 10% and 12% bracket space. At $133,000 per year in the 12% bracket, that's $798,000 of conversion capacity gone. That is almost $800,000 of tax-free wealth permanently unavailable because the window was ignored. Here is the 3-part framework for patching the bucket, and I'm going to make each of these as specific as I can, because generic advice has cost this country $44,000 retirement balances. Number 1, audit your total fee load this week. Not just your advisor fee. Open your investment accounts. Look up the expense ratio of every fund you hold. Add your advisor fee on top. If the combined number is above 0.5% annually, you need to have a conversation about what exactly you are getting for the premium. If you have a $500,000 portfolio paying a 1% advisory fee, that is $5,000 per year. Add another point, 7 to 5% in fund fees, and the total jumps to $8,750 annually. Over 10 years, that is nearly $90,000 in fees, not including lost growth. That is a real number. It is your money. It is leaving quietly. Number 2, build your exit buffer before you think you need it. The 58% rule is not a warning about other people. It is about you. 1 to 2 years of living expenses in high yield cash, held separately from your investment portfolio, changes the entire sequence of returns equation. You retire into a crash, you live on cash. Portfolio recovers. You never had to sell at the bottom. This is not sexy. It does not feel like investing. It is the single highest leverage risk management move available to someone within 5 years of retirement. Number 3, map your tax buckets now, not at 65. The Roth conversion window is time limited and bracket dependent. Every year you wait inside that window without acting is bracket space that compounds against you. You do not need to convert everything. You fill the 12% bracket or the 22% bracket, depending on your situation, each year during the gap between retirement and when your Social Security and required minimum distributions hit simultaneously and push you into a higher bracket. This is the game the wealthy are playing. It is not complicated. It is just not on the standard retirement planning poster. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. And one more thing, the $44,000 median retirement balance, that is not a problem of people not caring about retirement. Among those providing an estimate, nearly half of workers said they were just, well, guessing when it comes to how much they need to retire. They are not lazy. They are working with a map that was drawn for someone else, optimized for average conditions that almost never arrive on schedule, and sold to them by an industry that profits from complexity and inertia. Patch the bucket. The water will take care of it.